We are live.
I'll now call the Estimates Committee meeting to order. The roll has been taken by the clerk. Members of the committee, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest for any items on tonight's agenda? Councillor Schloss?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, last meeting I declared a conflict on the John Noble home, but I neglected to give a reason why. And the reason why is I have a family member employed there.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Schloss.
Yep.
Much appreciated. Item 3, we will now commence item 3.1, continuation of the 2023 capital budget worksheet. Step 3A provides a summary of the Brantford Fire 2023 capital budget. Individual projects are identified at step 3B. Do members have any questions or amendments on the 2023 Brantford Fire capital projects? Separate motions will be required to consider amendments to the individual projects identified in step 3B. Councillor McCreary.
Chair, thank you, and through you to staff. With respect to the replacement of pumpers and rescue vehicle, the vehicles that we buy, are the body, chassis, and cab all one item?
Through the chair, the chassis is purchased from one manufacturer to a bodybuilder, and the bodybuilder assembles the body part of the truck.
We typically replace the entire piece of equipment. Chief, is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, we purchase a whole new unit.
Does the body have a longer life than the actual cab and chassis?
Through the chair, the chassis are made of an aluminum construction, and the bodies in our last few vehicles are stainless steel. So there is potential that there would be a longer life out of the body, but the NFPA standard doesn't really separate the body from the chassis when it talks about replacement years.
Okay, gotcha. And tell me what becomes of the unit that we replace.
Through the chair, previous units have been auctioned off to the highest bidder through auction companies. Our last vehicle that went out of service was donated to Conestoga College.
Okay, so the net cost that you show here would be the net of whatever you might recognize from the sale, or what would the disposition of the proceeds of the sale, where would that money go?
Through the chair, I believe they're returned to the fire reserve.
Okay.
But
thank you. And can you remind me if we donate the bunker gear that we replace to a third party?
Through this chair, bunker gear, when we replace, typically doesn't get donated because we replace it at end of life. NFPA standard for replacement of bunker gear is 10 years, and that is when we replace it.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Councillor McCreary. Mayor Davis.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. So, Chief Binkley, the item for the station number 1, resurfacing or replacement of the pavement. Can you hear me? Yeah, my question to you is, when was the last time that was resurfaced?
Through the chair, the pavement at Station 1 is original when the station was built in 2000.
Right. And on what basis was the decision made to replace it this year? So I don't seem to recall it was in, last time I was there was in that bad a shape, although I didn't sit there and look at it very closely.
Through the chair, the decision to replace it this year was based on a consultant's report that evaluated all fire stations. You are correct, it is not totally debilitated. However, there are pieces of the pavement that need to be replaced, and the funds shown here are to do that, to do just some patchwork and bring it up to a standard.
So it's not a total replacement, just a repair, patch and repair.
Through the chair, correct.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. Councillor Celeste?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Chief. Recollection tells me that the lead time on purchasing like a pumper is fairly lengthy. And I'm just wondering, by the time we get to March or whenever this budget gets formally approved, does that still give you time in 2023 to receive the equipment that you're trying to buy?
Through the chair, this project was brought to before council with consideration of the lead times for pumpers. Pumpers have gone from a 12-month-ish build time to a 24-month build time. So those time factors have been built in bringing this project to you this year.
So it's already on order.
Through the chair, so NFPA standard for replacement pumper is 15 years as a front run and 5 years as a spare. The truck we are looking to replace is a 2025. So if council approves it this year, we will order it to receive that pumper in 2025.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Celeste. Any further? Oh, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, thank you. What's the year of the truck being replaced?
Through the chair, it is a 2005 Spartan C grade pumper.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Not seeing any. Do members wish to make any motions to add to the proposed 2023 capital budget as presented? I don't see any. Let's move on. Step 4. Step 4A provides a summary of the People, Legislative Services and Planning 2023 capital budget. Individual projects are identified in Step B. Do members have any questions or amendments on the 2023 People, Legislative Services and Planning capital projects? Separate motions would be required to consider amendments to individual projects. Identified in 4B. Councillor McCreary.
Mr. Chair, thank you, and through you to staff. With respect to clerk's electronic records management system, I wonder if staff could state if that's going to have an impact on future operating costs.
So through the chair at this time, what we are asking for is a funding for a comprehensive program that looks at software and licenses for those software. But yes, there will be a future operating cost of approximately $200,000 per year to maintain the system once it is fully implemented. That's what we anticipate.
Is that in this year's operating budget?
Through the chair, it is not. This is being, it will be carried forward in 2024. We don't anticipate the full implementation will be up and running until that date.
Okay, thank you. And my next question pertains to the archaeological master plan. I'm just wondering what more we can learn from doing an update on the master plan. I think everything is already in the ground that we're going to find, and I know there must be a more comprehensive explanation than that. If you could give that, please.
Absolutely. Through the chair, this isn't simply a master plan document. I know that's what we've titled it, but it's more than just a policy document that would coexist with our official plan and, of course, the zoning updates that we're currently completing. But it's also a management plan. So essentially what we're looking to do is build out a tool that will not only be a resource that can be used for the development community to access, where we can identify where the areas of interest might be within the city of Brantford. And we know that there are two main areas of interest, one on either side of the river. But we're also in a development boom. And so we need to develop a tool that can be utilized by the development community that can also be used internally to help us manage some of those resources as we go through our own EA processes. And of course, some of those capital projects you'll see in the public works sheet could benefit from a program like this. And then it will also be a relationship building tool with the Indigenous community because our current plan lacks some of the information that we have received through the Indigenous community consultations that we've been undertaking.
Thank you for that. Is there a Bill 23 impact on archaeology like there is on heritage?
Through the chair, no, not in the same way that there would be on heritage. Simply, the impacts would actually be, in my mind, more through Bill 109 and how quickly we need to move through the development processes. And we know that in many cases, and particularly I would say on our side with our EAs, we run into some issues when we haven't had sufficient information at the front end on the archaeological resources that might get in the way of proceeding.
So for a developer then, would the onus still be on them for the stage 1 desktop study and the stage 2? Or does this relieve some of that?
Through the chair, we're hoping that this information can help inform those stages. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you can skip through the provincial process, but if we have that information available through our online resources, it would help inform the consultants who are undertaking the work on the part of the development community.
And does this,
Thank you, Councillor McCurry. Your time's up. Do you want to go back on the list? Well, we'll put you there anyway. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Through you to staff, the electronic records management system, will this eliminate the need for record storage at the airport?
So through the chair, that will be a component of the project, and it's certainly something that staff are currently undertaking in terms of our review. But the idea is that, yes, ultimately we end up in an environment where we have an electronic system and we don't need all of that storage. And so we'll be looking at not only the reduction of those documents at the airport, but also the relocation either to a city location or through a third party. And then how we manage those documents as they get scanned into the system and then they are itemized in our system will hopefully mean that we can eliminate the documents entirely in their hard copy form and manage everything on an electronic platform.
And what kind of time frame do you expect for all that to happen?
Well, the reduction of documents is an ongoing item within the clerk services team. We do have a project right now that we're working on with the facilities team to look at the relocation of those records. This whole system will take at least a year to procure and to commence the implementation. But we don't anticipate that the document relocation would have to be held up because of the actual system that we're looking at procuring.
Okay. And the archaeological master plan, going back to that for a minute, you said part of it involves a management plan. Was there a management plan in any of the previous archaeology studies that were done?
No, through the chair, that's one of the deficiencies that's been identified. So actually the city, when we talk about our archaeological plan itself, it's really a subset of some of the work that took place through the heritage plan. So looking at our heritage resources, there was a component there that was developed by the consultant, but it's not a comprehensive archaeological master plan. And there certainly wasn't a management plan component.
Okay, because I think in the write-up for it, it listed all the different times that plans have been done. And as Councillor McCurry said, the stuff that's in the ground isn't changing. Will this be the last time that we have to review this?
So through the chair, this will be an important tool to help us identify where they're not. I know we all say it's in the ground, but some areas, of course, have already been reviewed. So we have clearance letters on certain areas in Brantford. So it's really about compiling where the clearances have already taken place, ensuring that areas that haven't already been searched are clearly identified and that we overlay some of the mapping and information we have from, as I mentioned, the Indigenous community about areas of interest to them. So I can't guarantee that there will never be another review of this kind, especially because we know provincial legislation and requirements also change. And this is a field of study, while it's quite historic, that is constantly evolving as well.
Okay, well, hopefully you can strive to make this the last one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Heidi. Heidi, I'm still trying to understand the electronic management system. It's about 625,000, and then it's an additional $200,000 a year to keep it operable. It's replacing, I presume, because it's electronic, it's replacing manual.
So through the chair, this is one of those projects that I understand can be difficult for our council or the estimates committee to comprehend, because it isn't as tangible as saying, you get this one thing. It's actually a combination of a number of things, including staffing to reduce the records. As we just heard, there are a number of records at our airport that need to be reduced before you maybe relocate them. They're also, it's the main component is actually the technology that we would be procuring through software as well as the support system. So the cost to support the software. We have this actually ongoing, I would say, problem with our IT services budgets where a lot of these systems are no longer a upfront capital cost that you pay and then you get to use it until its end of life. It actually is now all in basically licensing programs. And so the ongoing cost of licensing and support for the program we hope to procure becomes an operating expense, and it's not something that we can keep in capital.
Okay. But we're doing this because it's more efficient, correct?
So through the chair, it will become more efficient. So right now, the city's online storage of documents is happening across the board in many different ways. We don't have one centralized system. In the way that staff are keeping documents, there's redundancies. Every time we have to back up our system, we're syncing information that may have 10 people have the same document saved on their system. And no one to date has been able to manage that entire system. So it would eventually lead to a cost savings there. We are estimating, I've got a rough estimate, about $160,000 a year in terms of the backup costs that we would be saving if we can actually create an area where this is all managed electronically. So there are clear savings and efficiencies in terms of document retrieval as well. So, and especially as staff leave the organization, we talk about information retention and knowledge, ensuring that all the information that we need and the documents that we are required to maintain by law are actually kept in a centralized place that's easily accessible to their predecessors.
Okay, so even though there's additional costs, there's actually savings once fully implemented, if I'm interpreting what you're saying.
Through the chair, that's what we anticipate. That's correct.
Okay, and would those savings be in manpower as opposed to equipment?
So through the chair, both in terms of the people power, retrieval of documents, the time it takes to find things on our systems where we don't have centralized spaces where we share documents. I know we are using SharePoint to a large extent now, and that will be an ongoing program of the city of Brantford. But yes, in terms of that. And then, as I mentioned before, our storage space. So cloud-based storage is not free. And so freeing up some of that space is similar to what we heard about at the airport. We want to free up the physical space, and then we also want to start freeing up some of the spaces that we have electronically.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Slass. Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Chair, and Brian Van Tilburg, and to our GM Heidi Vries. The electronic records. I'll start with that. Just clearly, the information there will prevent us in the future of having to go and dig through archives for information requests. That when someone requests information that's buried in the archives, well, that saves some staff time once we get it all digitized in electronic record format.
Through the chair, absolutely. That's one of the areas that we anticipate will be savings in terms of efficiency.
Yeah, and it'll be a lot quicker to find that information as well. Okay, just another follow-up question to the parking master plan. Could you sort of give us a briefing of when was the last time we did that and why are we doing this again?
So through the chair, I don't believe the city of Brantford has done a comprehensive parking master plan to the extent that we're asking for. The reason this is coming forward now is actually it coincides with the work that's taking place under the zoning bylaw. So as a subset of the overall zoning bylaw project, we're looking at private property parking and the capacity for parking in private lots. And what we're asking for here is that we, as public property owner, that we look at the property that we have and how it will be utilized to address the significant growth that's happening in the city of Brantford in terms of neighborhood parking plans, as well as our assets downtown, which we know is an urban growth center. So we are currently experiencing a boom of growth in our downtown core. So what are the long-term plans for our parkade, for instance, where we have ongoing capital costs? What are the long-term plans for our two parking lots? What's the overall plan for, and I loath to mention that here, on-street parking in the downtown. And some of these questions that we've been hearing arising not only through planning hearings, but on the floor, and opportunities actually for increased revenue where we look at parking enforcement on private property that could potentially be done by the city of Brantford as well. So there are essentially 6 deliverables that are all set out in the project scenario detail within the budget. And we're asking for funding for this comprehensive plan to take place. So to answer your question, the short answer is it's never been done before. And the long answer is we're experiencing a lot of growth, and it's time that we looked at this particular asset being parking in the city of Brantford and how it will address some of the growth related issues we may be experiencing.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. And I just want to say I've always appreciated your department, your leadership, and it does great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Heidi, just one quick question. Under the software upgrades and replacements, the 75,000 that's being spent there, are any of that are we gonna have any savings from licensing that we're not gonna have to purchase for the software that we are replacing?
Through the chair, no.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Mayor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to Heidi. Heidi, this parking master plan, will it be looking at the parking situation on Brant Ave?
So through the chair, it will be looking at the parking situation comprehensively throughout the city. And so where there are identified areas like Brant Avenue, and we heard some of this through the Grand River Ave planning hearing as well, where there are constraints in terms of on-street parking and potential options there, it'll be looking at those areas as well.
Yeah, the reason why I ask it is because some who are concerned about the traffic flows in Brant Ave can foresee at some point in the future banning on-street parking in order to maintain the traffic flows. So would it look at that if on-street parking were banned? Now, I'm not advocating for it. I just want to know if you did that, what you'd have to provide in the way of municipal parking.
So through the chair, the master plan is intended to be a higher level document. It may come out of there when we undertake our stakeholder engagement as part of the plan, that there are certain areas that are experiencing more difficulties in terms of the way that parking is structured. Of course, it'll work in conjunction with the transportation master plan when we look at some of the plans for those areas like Brant Avenue, and we can name a few others. If there are those areas that we find are experiencing those types of difficulties, and we would be looking to the consultant for recommendations in terms of how to address those, and then how to potentially replace the parking, especially when you're dealing with commercial corridors where you really do have businesses relying on quick parking access on the street.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. Councillor McCurry, second time.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And again, through you to staff. Heidi, with respect to the electronic records management system. So to reiterate then, you will have what will come to us next year's budget will be approximately a $200,000 unmet need for additional operating costs.
Through the chair, that's what we anticipate.
Okay. And I believe in the project sheet, it indicated that we could anticipate some revenue from having vacated the space where all that stuff is kept now.
So through the chair, certainly our hope is that by vacating the space at the airport, that the airport board in conjunction with staff will be able to revision that space and create a potential revenue generator. What those plans may be, I don't believe that they are currently before us in a way that we could present them. But that is the hope, that we free up valuable space at another asset.
Is all that stuff kept in the same old barn that the two buses are in? Does anyone know?
To you, Mr. Chair, Brian Hutchings, CEO. It's an adjoining barn. So there's two barns out there. There's a little hallway between them. So the records are on one side, and then there's a hallway, and then there's a adjoining, which has the nativity scene and the two old buses.
Thank you for that. Perhaps facilities staff are cringing at our description of these as old barns. Thank you. I thought that was the location, and they are buildings that I would encourage members of council to visit at least once. Now, Heidi, with respect to the archaeological master plan again, can we anticipate an increase to our operating costs as a result of that?
So through the chair, no, we don't anticipate operating cost increases due to that plan.
Okay. What about decreases?
So through the chair, we certainly keep our eye on those things and how efficiencies may be leading to efficiencies in terms of our planning may lead to cost efficiencies and potential for charging back. So we can always bring those forward if there are any savings.
Thank you. And again, with respect to the parking master plan, that'll be looking at the future of the parking structure.
Through the chair, that is one of the key deliverables. In fact, we continue to hear about whether or not the parking structure deserves our time and attention going forward. And what we're looking for as well is a consultant to indicate how valuable that asset may be going forward and how we may address some of the repairs and other projects that are ongoing there.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCurry. Any further speakers? First, second time? Seeing none. Do any members wish to make motions to add to the proposed 2023 capital budget as presented? And I see none. So with that, we'll move to step number 5. Step 5A provides a summary of the CAO 2023 capital budget. Individual projects are identified in step B. Do members have any questions or amendments on the 2023 CAO capital projects? Separate motions would be required to consider amendments to the individual projects as identified in step B. Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Joelle, I guess. Joelle, the budgeting software enhancements for multi-year budgeting, once this is $55,000 is spent on software, does that give you everything that you need to do multi-year budgeting?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. It is only a $35,000 request. We do actually own the software and the module, but this is the funds to sort of get the module activated and populated and be able to customize reports that are specific more for the city of Brantford and our org structure, so we can present that multi-year budget to you next year in a format that is for that is really city of Brantford made. Yeah.
Okay. So the short answer was yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Joelle.
Thank you, Councillor Sless. Councillor McCurry.
Mr. Chair, thank you, and through you to staff. Regarding the communications and community engagement item that's on the agenda today. Oh, I see Maria's coming. I'll wait till you come up here. I know how hard that can be to, Thank you very much. So it's called the City Branding Project. Now, I think you can assure us that we're not redoing the logo, right?
Through the chair, yes, I can. First, I'll introduce myself. Maria Visaki. I'm the Director of Communications, Community Engagement, and Customer Service. And yes, I can confirm that the branding project has nothing to do with recreating the city logo.
And that's important to recognize because we've had some fun with that in past years, haven't we? This is part of an ongoing program, is that right?
That's correct. It originally started as the project that you referred to, and there was a consultant that created a strategy around rebranding the city. This was the remaining funds in that capital envelope, and we put it towards creating a series of videos with the objective of instilling community pride among residents. But an additional objective was to also have the videos serve as a recruitment campaign following COVID and telling folks, following the worst of COVID, telling folks to come on back and reminding them of the amazing assets that were unique to Brantford.
So you can state quite confidently that there is value in this project.
Through the chair, yes, I think there is value. We could see that through the number of impressions and number of views that we get on the videos and the number of shares. I think it's definitely worthwhile to have that ongoing current reference of the assets that exist in this community. We found that the real estate community reached out to us, asked us for permission to use the videos in their selling packages, as did the chamber. And we got a lot of really positive feedback about it. So I definitely think there's value in people being proud of the community that they live in and the unique assets that exist here. It certainly contributes to quality of life.
Thank you for that, Maria.
Thank you, Councillor McCurry. Councillor Hunt.
Through the chair to Maria. So the $25,000, this is video creation. So this is evergreen content, correct?
Through the chair, yes, it's video as well as paid media, and it's a digital media campaign to promote the videos and get extended viewership.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Any further questions? Be quiet. Seeing none on the screens. Do members wish to make any motions to add to the proposed 2023 capital budget as presented? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next step. We're on step 6. Step 6 provides a summary of the Community Service and Social Development 2023 capital project. Individual projects are identified in step 6B. Do members have any questions or amendments on the 2023 Community Service and Social Development projects? Separate motions would be required to consider amendments to the individual project identified in step 6B. Councillor McCurry.
Thank you, Chair. And again, through you to our staff. With respect to the capital for the VMP houses, I presume that when we say VMP, we mean BSAR?
Through the chair, Aaron Wallace, Acting General Manager of Community Services. So that is the properties on the Veterans Memorial Parkway.
This would be what streets, Aaron?
Through the chair, I'll ask our Director of Housing to confirm that for committee.
Mary Musson, Director of Housing and Homelessness. Through the chair, yes, that is the BSAR properties, also known as Veterans Memorial Parkway. So these would be the houses that are on Cayuga Street, Graham Avenue, Coburn Street, Murray Street, Drummond Street, Greenwich Street, Glenwood Drive, Linwood Drive, and Park Road South.
We did have a discussion about the future of several of these houses becoming a site for a multi-development. Is that still under consideration, Mary?
Through the chair, that is being investigated, and I believe there will be an in-camera report coming forward.
Oh, I hope I didn't tip our hand. So these are all singles, correct?
Through the chair, yes, they are.
We didn't capture that in our long-range plan to divest of singles like we've done up in Mayfair.
Through the chair, no, it hasn't been captured in long-range planning yet, but it is part of planning.
Okay, so that's something that's being considered, divesting of those as folks move out.
Through the chair, that's something that needs to be considered as part of the report.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Councillor McCurry. Any further speakers? Seeing none, do members wish to make any motions to add to the proposed 2023 capital budget as presented? And seeing none, well, I don't think we need to have revised totals as nothing's changed to date. We'll just move to, we've now completed the budget worksheets for tonight's meeting. We'll now move on to the remaining items for consideration for our agenda. Can I get a mover and a seconder to place item 3.2 on the floor? Councillor Sullivan and seconder, Councillor Sicoli. Any discussion on item 3.2? Here it is. Councilor McCurry?
Chair, thank you. Through you to staff. So we're approving a budget tonight that we have not deliberated. Do I understand that correctly?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this budget was prepared back in the fall in accordance with the shared services agreement between the city and the county. So the budget originally went to the Social Services Committee, I believe on September the 7th, in accordance with that agreement. And then that timing was approved because it was an election year. The budget has been to the County of Brant through their December meeting cycle for comment. They've approved it in principle. Now it's back at the Estimates Committee tonight for approval because in accordance with that agreement, we do have to have council approve these budgets, both the operating and the capital, prior to February 1st.
What day do we begin our deliberation of our operating budget?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're anticipating right now that the first night for the non-shared component of the city's budget to begin February 1st.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McCurry. Any further speakers on this item? Seeing none, I think we'll proceed to the vote. We'll be doing that on eScribe. Very good.
Just a reminder that these votes are in the January 28th dummy site for Estimates Committee. Counselor Caputo, I was waiting for yours to be submitted. And Counselor Samwell? Okay. And sorry, Counselor Hein, it looks like we're having some issues with the message coming through to my computer. Counselor Hein, did you submit yours?
I did on the January 28th.
Okay, would you be able to verbally tell me?
My vote was yes.
Thank you. So the 2023 shared social services operating capital budget approval carries unanimously on a recorded vote. Those in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillor Sokoli, Sullivan, Caputo, Celeste, Martin, McCreary, Hunt, Carpenter, Samwell, and Van Tilburg.
Very good. Item 3.3, the Public Works Capital Budget Sheet Process. Staff have requested that the process for managing the Public Works Capital Budget Worksheet be changed in order to help reduce overtime of city staff throughout the worksheet. Past practice is to have separate items per page of the worksheet consider the separate items and then move on to the next page, completing the same process for each page. The new process would mean that members are to come to Estimates Committee on Wednesday, January 18th, with all the items throughout the entire worksheets that they would like to separate and state this at the beginning of the worksheet. If members would like to change the process, I will need a mover and a seconder on the motion and the agenda. If the motion carries, the process for Wednesday will be changed. And if the motion is not moved or if it's not carried, we will continue with the past practice. Would anyone like to move the motion? Councillor McCreary, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Sokoli?
Thank you. Through the chair. Just for clarity, are we talking about going line by line versus coming in prepared for separation?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the intent is not necessarily to go through each one line by line. So when we do come to Wednesday, the Public Works section of the worksheet, there's 149 individual projects. So what this motion would allow is for members of council to come to Wednesday's meeting prepared with the projects that they want separated, just like council would do at a regular council meeting. We've got 18 reports on the agenda and everyone identifies off the top of the night the ones they want to separate. This would be a very similar process. And then those staff that don't have any projects separated would then be able to leave the meeting and not be attending all night.
That sounds fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, should we be making our list based on the reference numbers or on the 7D number?
Question.
If we're all on the same page, it'll speed things up.
Maybe the clerk will want to answer, but I would suggest the number in the first column, if it's 7B1 to 149.
That's precisely what I was going to say. And I will create the separation sheet for the chair in that manner.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's call the vote.
Sorry, Councillor Hunt, it's not showing your vote come through. Would you be able to verbally advise?
I vote yes. It didn't even show up on my e-scribe.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Samuel? Thanks. The process motion has carried unanimously on a recorded vote. Those in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillor Sakoli, Sullivan, Caputo, Celeste Martin, McCreary, Hunt, Carpenter, Samuel, and Van Tilburg.
Wow. Our meeting is now complete. We will now recess until Wednesday, January 18th, 2023 at 4:30 p.m.